We all hit those rough patches in life, right? Those times when you just feel stuck and kind of hopeless.
Yeah, those moments can be really tough.
So today we're going deep into this YouTube channel, Faith and Hardship,
Okay.
and we want to figure out how they use audio, like we're doing right now, to bring a message of hope to people who are struggling. I mean, there's something
Mhm.
about audio that feels really personal, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
you can listen while you're doing other things, and it almost feels like you're having a conversation with someone.
Right, exactly. And we've heard that telling relatable stories is a big part of making a message like that really connect with people.
Yeah, it's like those stories make those ideas of hope and faith, things that can seem kind of abstract, they make them feel real and practical.
Exactly. So let's get into it. What's the mission here? What are they trying to do with this Faith and Hardship channel?
Well, from what we've seen in their videos, it looks like they're trying to help people find hope through faith, especially when they're going through tough times.
Makes sense. And they seem to use a lot of stories, both historical and from the Bible, to kind of drive that point home.
Right. It's like they're constantly reminding you that if these people in these stories could find hope, then you can too.
Yeah, I see that. So who exactly are they talking to? Who's the audience for this kind of message?
Yeah. It seems like they're mainly focusing on people who are already Christians or who are at least open to the idea of Christian faith.
Mm, yeah, that makes sense.
The way they use Bible stories
Mhm.
and the fact that they often quote from the NIV translation and they usually end with a prayer.
Right.
It all points to that audience.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. Okay, so let's talk about some of those Bible stories they use.
Okay.
One that really stood out to me was the story of Moses at the Red Sea. That's in Exodus chapter 14, verses 13 and 14.
Oh, yeah, that's a powerful one.
Talk about a situation that feels impossible, trapped between the sea and the Egyptian army.
Right. It's like, where do you even turn? But then Moses tells the people to just stand firm and trust that God will deliver them.
It's incredible.
It's a really powerful message for anyone who feels like they're up against a wall, like no matter how impossible things seem,
Yeah.
there's always hope.
Then there's that story about the woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. It's in Mark chapter 5, verse 74.
Oh, yeah?
And that one felt so personal, so much about individual faith.
Exactly. This woman had been suffering for so long, and she was probably feeling isolated and alone. But she believed that if she could just touch Jesus's clothes, she would be healed.
And she was.
And she was. And what's even more powerful is that Jesus recognized her faith. He said, "Daughter, your faith has healed you."
It shows you the power of believing, even when you're facing something really difficult. And then there's Job. That's a whole other level of faith.
Right, absolutely.
Job 13:15, though he slay me, yet will I hope in him. I mean, that's some serious commitment right there.
Right. Like he lost everything, his family, his wealth, his health, and yet he still held on to his faith.
It's mind-blowing.
It makes you question, is faith just about getting what you want, or is it about trusting God even when things are falling apart?
That's deep. And then we have Isaiah 40:31. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. It's like a promise of renewal, of getting your energy back.
Yeah, it's like it's telling you that if you put your hope in God, you'll find the strength to keep going.
It's encouraging, for sure. Okay, so we've talked about these powerful stories, but how does faith and hardship actually use them to make a difference for people listening today?
Well, they don't just like read the verses. They turn these stories into something you can really connect with.
Yeah, I noticed that.
They talk about the emotions these people felt, the fear and the desperation, and then the relief or the determination to keep going.
It helps you put yourself in their shoes.
Makes sense. And their videos aren't just a jumble of random thoughts. There's definitely a structure to it, right?
Absolutely. There's a very clear flow to how they present things.
Yeah.
It usually starts with acknowledging that life is hard, that everyone goes through tough times.
Then they'll bring in those stories we talked about, like Moses or the woman with the bleeding issue.
Right.
They'll draw some kind of lesson or insight from those stories, like the example from Job about holding on to faith even when things are bad.
Yeah.
And then they'll tie it all back to the main message of hope and faith. And often, they'll even encourage the listener to pray.
And they often end with a verse from the Bible.
Right, exactly. It's a very deliberate way to build their message and make it really resonate with people.
So by understanding all these pieces, their audience, the stories they choose, the way they tell those stories, and how they structure their videos, it gives us a pretty good picture of how faith and hardship tries to connect with people,
Right.
right?
It's clear that they put a lot of thought into how they present their message, and it's definitely more than just sharing information. It's about offering real encouragement and guidance based on faith.
Yeah, that comes through. As we wrap up, I'd encourage you to think about those Bible stories we discussed. Which one sticks with you the most, and why? What does that tell you about your own journey and how you find hope? It's something worth reflecting on, I think.
I think so too.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.
My pleasure.